I'll do a little intro, shall I?
Go on then.
Just make something up as we go along.
Yeah.
Although I don't really know why. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Saturday night's festivities. Here's a man who needs absolutely no introduction, so I don't really know why I'm bothering with an introduction. Let's give it up for Mr. Andy Partridge.
Oh, has he come in? Is he in? I don't see him. Hey. Yes.
Hello. How are you doing?
Well, I'm still alive. Yeah, that's a bonus.
That's always a good start, isn't it?
Always a good bonus, yeah.
Now, just before we get started on the questions, because I know we're a bit limited for time, do you want to talk quickly, well, we've got a few minutes and we've got a captive audience, about the new release, about the Christmas EP?
Poor sods. Yeah, poor devils. I can imagine them all sat there in bright orange jumpsuits, you know.
Or like Guantanamo.
Yeah, exactly. The Guantanamo down at Steam. It's a pop-up Guantanamo.
Well,
I don't care. I'm having my drinking chocolate. But sorry, I interrupted you, Dan.
No. Does that have the magic spoonful in it?
A bit of chicory, bit of drinking chocolate.
I'm just drinking a cup of tea. I've got water for later if I need it. A cup of tea will do.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So your question was.
I just thought it might be nice to quickly bring people up to date with the Christmas EP, because obviously that's gone on sale now, so that's coming out shortly.
Yeah, it's actually up for pre-order a bit earlier than I knew. So I'm as pleasantly surprised as you are about that. But yeah, that's volume 1 of a hoped-for 2 volumes, too much bloody Christmas music coming your way. That'll teach you.
But that was going to come out originally last year, is that right? And then there was all the problems with the pressing plants?
Oh, yeah, that was the whole, queuing for vinyl is it's kind of dominated by the majors now. And of course, Ape is not a major label, If we were Sony, we'd just get on the phone and say, yeah, we want 500,000 of this and push everyone else to the back of the queue. So that's how it goes. When you're dealing with a cottage industry, which we are, you have to, you're like church mice with your cap in hand. And please, would you press up the 5,000 or however money,
Cool, but you're happy with it. It's all come together
quite
nicely.
Yeah. I think it's just too damn much Christmas for you.
You can never have too much Christmas, surely.
No, you can't. Are you one of those houses that leaves your Christmas decor up all year?
I'm not personally. Neil would have it up from July, happily. Literally, we get to 20 the day after the longest day, so 22nd of June, and it's kind of like, when can we start Christmas? It horrifies me. I would I'd take Christmas out of the loft the week before Christmas.
Well, those tinsel trousers can chaff if you've got them on all year.
Totally, I know.
But no, I'm one of those people. Leave the reeds up, let your baubles dangle. It's just leave it all there. So
I really am the sort of person that will happily shove it back in a box on Boxing Day and shove it straight back into the loft again, and it's gone. I don't mind it, and I quite enjoy having friends around and doing all the cooking. I quite enjoy cooking Christmas lunch, but it's and Christmas TV's crap these days as well, isn't it? It used to be.
Oh yeah, what you got to do is get your stash of things to watch ready. Give YouTube some or Vimeo or wherever you go to, whoever does it, and just get your stuff ready. The TV, no, I haven't had a TV license for a year. So I can't hold that as long as Viv does that. But I can hear the edit in it. So a lot of people, if you don't know the Bonzos, you'll think, has he gone off on one there?
Oh, love the Bonzos. Love a bit of Bonzos.
Absolutely.
Dear old Neil. God, love him. Okay.
The reason I did Apples and Oranges EP was that I loved Humanoid Boogie so much as a youngster, I mean, to me, that was the first rap song.
Mm.
You know, the whole meter of it. You know, to me, it was rapping about a pop future yet to come in 1968, I think they
Sure,
recorded.
sure.
You
Have
know,
you
that
kind
was
of,
yet to come, and here we are. Here it is, you know.
I mean, as we're on that subject, and before we get on to everybody else's questions, have you thought about other Bonzo's tracks you might like to cover? What about, I don't know, My Pink Half of the Drainpipe or something?
No, some things are just so perfect you can't. I mean, I've got other songs later in the computer that I've always wanted to cover, and I'm kind of part the way through covering them, and then I get covered out because I'm not doing different enough with them.
Right.
It's like I've not taken this holy icon and remade it totally. So am I attracted by the fact that it's seared in my memory as a certain scent, a certain flavor, a certain taste? Or do I like the kind of naughtiness of let's pull it all to pieces and put it together unrecognizable, like our version of All Along the Watchtower,
Sure.
you know?
I mean, that harks back to all the dub experiments and Takeaway and things like that, doing something very different.
Yeah, see, maybe I got that out of my system. Maybe I've come around to the Dave Gregory thing of being arch marble and the hallmarks and trying to do it as faithfully as possible, you know. Like Ella Guru, that was, you can't beat it, join it, you know.
Right then, quite a few people, for some odd reason, are very interested in your digestive habits. And actually, my favorite question from everyone is the very first question out. And it's from James. I never know how to pronounce his surname. I'm really sorry. James Reimer, James Reimer, Reimer. I'm terrible with those kind of, you know, two vowel names.
I'd go for Reimer.
James Reimer. This is for James Reimer.
Could be Reimer.
It could be, well, yeah, it could be Reimer. It's like Matt Groening, Matt Greening, you know, that two-syllable thing.
Yeah, let's call him Matt Groening.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so for Matt Groening, James Groening, what sauce do you prefer with your Manchego omelette?
Oh, I don't sauce them up. I just make them with a little butter or 2 eggs, a little butter, very low heat. That's the secret. You know, you cannot do eggs on a high heat. You just turn them into insoles. And then you have to trim them around to fit your size of shoe. So always do omelettes on. You see, I couldn't even talk about doing omelettes at one time. My first marriage, everything was cooked for me, and then I found myself divorced. It was shit. I better learn that cooking jive. So yeah, so you use a low heat and just 2 eggs, and don't beat them too much. You want a little bit of solidity still left to the egg. Grate your Manchego mixed in with the egg at the last second before you bring it out, and some of the omelette still has to be runny, but no sauce. If any sauce at all, it may be a flick of like a sort of chili salsa type.
James actually says that his favorite thing to use is Tabasco or Chipotle Tabasco.
Okay, so, well, I can't do too hot these days. You know, I used to be one of those kiddies that'll go out after a few pints, you know, and it'll be bring me the hottest thing on the menu. You know, that sort of idiot. But no, can't do that now.
Okay. Alejandro Gustavo Caner would like to know, if the time comes and Andy and himself are in the mood, will he share a beer or a coffee or whatever beverage with him? So I think what he wants to know is, what would you like to drink if you're out for a drink with somebody?
Oh my goodness. My alcoholic intake is pretty low these days. Mr. Ticker has seen to that. I can't do too much booze these days, but a nice glass or two of like a Chateauneuf de Pape, a nice thick meaty red wine, or a pint of a good bitter. Really, I'm a fellow with simple taste.
Rachel Willie is asking, if you could get dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh, have gone down, and I don't know whether this is an appropriate metaphor or not, but have gone down a rabbit hole of Brian Sewell
Oh,
lately.
yes.
Brian Sewell, art critic, yes. I mean, the late Brian Sewell, sadly, but I've been watching an awful lot of stuff about Brian Sewell, and yeah, I love the fella. He's just, if he's not happy with a work of art, he lets you know why and lets it all come out. But if he likes something, he tells you why he likes it. And it's so perfectly tuned as to, oh, I see that. Yes, nobody's ever explained it like that, you know. So right now he'd be on a list of a dinner with Brian Sewell. But
if you're going to do a Brian Sewell impersonation, you've got to give people a few seconds of your Alan Bennett.
Oh yes, well, oh my Alan Bennett. You see, if it was me and Alan out for the night, we'd get really smashed out of our brains on tenants, you know, and then we'd go and pick on somebody of an ethnic minority in a back alley somewhere. But no, Alan Bennett, he doesn't like to get too much blood on his Doc Martens these days. It hurts. It hurts his toe if he's got his moccasins on. That's what I was saying to Thora, anyway.
So I would imagine Alan Bennett drinking something like Wincarnis
or drinking chocolate with a dab of chicory.
There you go. Brilliant.
That's what I like when I like to get a takeaway from the Corova milk bar. That's what me and Thora have.
So I can see Thora actually now sat on her stair lift, slowly drifting up the stairs with a glass of Wincarnis in one hand and a mug of coffee and chicory in the other.
Oh, for a filthy night. A filthy night in.
A filthy night with Alan Bennett. There's a title for a book.
I want to write it now.
You should. A filthy night with Alan Bennett. Mark Brett would like to know, it's an odd one, this. What's your favourite curry? I like a vegetable biryani, but Rosie Vela tells me she once spotted a half-eaten curry in your fridge.
Really? God, she snuck into my kitchen in her ninja gear. I didn't know she was there. Actually, I had the last, just slightly on a off the Beatle track here. In the early days, I had a German fan turn up one afternoon, and this was not long after I'd moved into where I live, or where we live. And he said, "Oh, I don't have any money for a hotel," and I felt sorry for him, so I said, "You know, you could sleep on the sofa." And I heard him rummaging around in the kitchen in the middle of the night, sort of clanging and getting out all these big knives, and I never slept a wink. I don't know what he was doing with the larger parts of the cutlery in my kitchen, but after that I vowed never to allow any unknown people to stay the night. But so yeah, Rosie Vila saw a half-eaten curry. I can't imagine what it was. It may have been, oh my God, it may have been a cheapo co-op curry. I for takeaway kind of commercial curries, I really like, do a bit of sponsorship here, if I play this right. I really like Charlie Bingham's, you know, Charlie Bingham's curries. Excellent. God, these are heavy food questions, aren't they?
Well, that's the end of the food section.
Yeah, sorry, Rosie, I can't totally answer that. One of two, probably.
Okay, so we're off the food and we're on to what I've just simply called odds and sods. But we've got a long section on music later, but this is just kind of odds and sod, little bits and pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, there's a couple of odd ones here, which, well, no, they're all odds. That's why they're odds and sods.
Chuck them, man. Go on, chuck them. Nothing out of bounds.
Cool. Jonathan Sheldrake would like to know, what's your favourite building in Swindon?
Ooh. At one time, it may have been the original town hall in Old Town, which has sadly been allowed to rot into such terrible disrepair. And I often think to myself, if that building was in Bath, they would have not let it go like that. But it's just a kind of destroyed shell at the moment with trees growing inside it. You know, that was quite a favorite. Favorite buildings in Swindon. Lots of little. There's some nice. Again, Old Town being the original village of Swindon, that's where you'll find the nicest bits and pieces, I think. Some of the old railway buildings are quite attractive too. Again, too many to pick one. So let's stick with the original town hall, or the Locarno as it was last known as, in Old Town Square.
Okay, so one from Kevin Fiddes. At what point did you feel, yeah, I've done something I felt was good?
I dip into that heady space now and again, but largely because I have too much trouble with negative thinking, and I've got to see somebody about this. I kind of think, oh damn it, I haven't achieved what I would have liked to have achieved. And then once in a blue moon, I'll just poke my head up into that purple smoke that is way up there on the ceiling, you know, and I think, yeah, I'm up here with all the people I idolized when I was younger, you know, and I've done things as good as them. But I mustn't allow myself to, because I can't breathe up there when I get in that purple smoke. So whew, I have to take my head out and think, no, I'm just normal old Andy from Penhill Council Estate. So I don't allow that to wash over me too much, because I think that it switches something in your head, and you may have trouble getting back to reality.
Yeah, I mean, a complete aside now, but from my own experience, I find it really hard to critique my own work anyway. I can't. It takes me years to read something that I and appreciate if it's any good or not, you know. Yeah, I have to go back to it years later. At the time, I can't. Yeah, I always have to have somebody else look at it, and I have to have the editor come in, and I have to have somebody else kind of go through that process. I can't divorce myself from it enough to look back and say that's good.
Absolutely. Yeah, when you're the goldfish in the bowl, or one of the goldfish in the bowl, you just cannot tell what shape that bowl is. You just swim around in it and you think, I wonder what shape this bowl is. If you're outside of the bowl, 10 foot away, you can say, oh, look at that. There's a Mickey Mouse shaped bowl there's fish are in, or whatever it is, you know, an Indian water buffalo shaped glass bowl those fish are swimming around in, whatever the Taj Mahal shape, whatever it is. But when you're in the bowl swimming around, you don't see that. You have no real genuine grasp of any worth, you know. And I'm sure that must be the same if you're a Led Zeppelin, or if you're a Beatle, or two, or all 9 Beatles, however many there've been of them.
The 8th Beatle. Yeah, who would be the 8th Beatle?
Mona Best.
Oh, Mona Best would be a great 8th Beatle, wouldn't she? You know, just being really angry in a corner somewhere.
And drumming better than her son.
Oh,
sorry.
God.
Sorry about that.
If Pete or Rogue turn up tonight.
Sorry, it was a bad taste gag. You're okay. Yeah.
Tim Kendrick would like to know what your typical day is like.
Oh my goodness me.
Is there such a thing?
Yeah, I'm a lazy shit, so I tend to, and I sleep poorly, so I tend to get up real late. I think that when I was younger, my typical day would have been more interesting, but no, I just kind of potter and putz, as Erica says. You know, you're just going to putz today, and yeah, all right, I'll putz. You know, so I'm a bit of a putzer these days. You know, I'll do a few emails, and that's a good idea for a tune. I'll write those couple of lines down, or whatever it is. I'm just a real putzer. Actually, incidentally, I've been really taking a break from music certainly in the last 6 months, but I kind of figure that I've been chasing some sort of musical dream since late 60s, early 70s. Well, practically since the early 70s. And I just needed a year off. So I've kind of given myself the best part of a year off, which is, you know, why I'm purposefully not worrying about, oh, do I need to finish that tune, or do I need to come up with a little ornamental piece for that idea, or do I need to finish that song for so and so, you know? So I'm kind of taking myself on a mental holiday, really.
I think after 50 years of doing what you do, you kind of deserve it.
Well, thanks, Mum.
Do you know, seriously, it's a lovely comment, but with the best one in the world, I would not want to be your mother.
No, please don't. I hear the phone ringing, so that there she is on the line from heaven or purgatory or wherever she is.
Quinn Fox would like to know if you are more inspired, or sorry, if you are more often inspired indoors or outdoors.
Good question. 50-50.
Oh, okay.
Because sometimes when you're out wandering around, you might see something that puts your brain straight back indoors. And when you're indoors, you might see something in a book or a picture or just a design on a rug or the tapestry, something, and you start thinking, oh, that's a bit like that area where the field comes down. Oh, I've always wanted to write a song about where that field comes down to that bit of lake there. And so there's no guarantee. One can send you, indoors can send you straight outdoors, outdoors can send you straight indoors, but there's no, generally I'd say about 50-50. Although I used to tell people that Colin Moulding, who was always had outside kind of jobs largely, he always wrote about smaller indoors things, like being in a back room somewhere, or being in a factory job, or being in his groundsman's hut, or whatever it was. He always wrote about the great indoors. And I was genuinely an indoors kind of kid. You know, and I used to, in my dreams a lot, I would fly outdoors over huge expanses of land, probably Wiltshire, you know, because I didn't know any other countryside really. I was too young to fantasize and nostalgize. Is that such a word?
You didn't see yourself flying over Pepperland then, or anything like that?
I know. Or Malta. Same thing.
Yeah, of course.
Same thing minus the trees, you know. Yeah, so I think Colin was the outdoor kid who wrote indoor things, and I was the indoor kid that wrote outdoor things. I think it's what you're hankering for, the missing yin yang piece, you know.
Sure. Good answer. I'll ask you anyway, but I can imagine what your take on this would be. Paul Curd would like to know what you think about the new digital-only parking permit system in Old Town.
Not being a car owner, I really have to struggle with that one. I've no idea there was such a thing. I'm against digital IDs generally. I'm against anything that takes any portion of your identity and stores it for the greater good. I'm against all that. I really like anonymity. In fact, I can't even be anonymous on Twitter. I had an anonymous Twitter account until last week, and I was just getting too damn political and talking about things to do with COVID and so on. I used the dreaded word ivermectin and was banned permanently. So, yeah, so I don't like anything that steals any portion of your identity. Beware digital ID and fight it at every level. So that's my advice to the citizens of Earth. Nanu, hang on, I got to do that. Yeah, Nanu.
Isn't that live long and prosper?
Oh, something like that. Yeah, yeah. But Nancy Whiskey.
Ah, there you go. Roger Patton would like. He has a memory of you in a podcast with a gentleman called Greg Bendian.
Oh yes, yeah, right. Wonderful percussionist who makes very good records.
There you go. So you were talking about Space Patrol. So Jerry Anderson.
Oh, love it, man. Yeah, go on.
So his question is: as a young 8 or 9-year-old, did you have a crush on Marla, Venusian assistant to Captain Rayburn? She really had it going on.
Kind of. I must admit, although Space Patrol was my favorite, and I could go on for hours about this. Although Space Patrol was my favorite puppet series ever, and I'll come back to that. Remind me of that in a second. Okay. My biggest puppet crush was Marina, Aquamarina. And I had this weird fantasy, or not fantasy, a weird realization that I had a crush on Marina, and my first wife did not look unlike Marina. And then now I'm with Erica, who did not look, or does not look, too unlike Atlanta Shore, who was the darker haired puppet in Stingray. So I ended up with both puppets at some point. Oh, is that something a bit sinister about that? Yeah. But
I totally get
Space Patrol, utterly made by Fred Judd's soundtrack. Fred Judd, FC Judd, I think his initials were. Fred Judd. There was no music in Space Patrol. It was all musique concrète. It was all, you know, it was all, it was like opening windows and looking at sections of some astral landscape and then closing them again. You know, there was no theme music like I wish I was a spaceman. No, there was none of that kind of early 60s space surf music that Jerry Anderson tended to go for. I'm trying to remember, gosh, what was her name? She did Space Patrol, Roberta Lee. She was smart enough to get Fred Judd involved, and to me the music not music, the soundtrack to Space Patrol really takes it into a true other dimension. So yeah, I loved Space Patrol. And of course, I thought that's what we'd all be like by 1970. What went right?
David Lake would like to know, what chapters are still unwritten in the book of Partridge? Are there still hills to climb on your wish list, be they musical or otherwise?
Well, this is a good question, because this is what I'm fighting with at the moment. It's all part of the taking a break from music and thinking, what else would I like to do? What do I want to achieve apart from everything I never achieved in the last 60 plunk years? I don't know. It's a fog at the moment, and I know something will loom out of the fog, but I've no idea what it's going to be. Is it going to be the prow of a ship? Am I going to become a professional figurehead carver? I don't know. What's going to loom out of the fog for me? I have no idea. Maybe I just need to lay down and play with my genitalia for the remaining time. I have no idea. Really no idea. So
hey, at least it still works.
At least it still works. Oh yeah. She works. So yeah, I have no idea, and that's why it's a good question, because I'm struggling with the same question right now. Yeah, we did achieve, as XTC, we achieved a lot and a little. You know, we're literally more or less totally unknown in England, known by some people in America and Japan and possibly a few European territories, and, you know, a smattering everywhere else. But you know, it's always an indication of how unknown you are in your own country when they always have to put, if they put my name in any publication or online or whatever, it always says brackets, member of XTC, close brackets. Okay, you know, you're never a prophet in your own land, you know.
Bill Goodfellow. This isn't really a question; it's more of a statement. Well, I suppose it is a statement. No, I'll start that one again. I need that edit card at this point.
Oh, right.
Thank you. Bill Goodfellow says or asks, Andy, is you is or is you ain't my baby?
All I'm going to say to that is Caledonia.
I'm sure somebody.
That's all I'm going to say. Actually, on a similar subject, I became besotted recently with I was watching a lot of Louis Jordan, and it sort of spilled over, and I got into Calloway land. And I saw a version of a song that I'd never seen Cab do before, which was It Ain't Necessarily So, which I think is from Porgy and Bess. Which reminds me of orgy, which is how John Lennon used to pronounce it. Oh, I'm going to an orgy. Like a convention of organ manufacturers, you know. Where was I? Oh, yes. So Cab Calloway doing It Ain't Necessarily So, and it's become my new favorite song lyric at the moment. Things like oh, Jonah, he lived in a whale. Oh, Jonah, he lived in a whale. He made his home in a fish's abdomen, which is just the best bent rhyme. I love bent rhymes, you know. And there's another good one about Lot's wife, and he takes her out for a malted until she's assaulted. Oh, come on.
That's fantastic.
Please write bent rhymes. All you musicians out there, songwriters, please write more bent lines as good as that in your material.
Which, for some strange reason, that's just reminded me that Camille says hello, says hi, and would love to know if you are a morning person or a night owl.
Night owl. No hesitation. Mornings. What are mornings? Tell me of this strange science of mornings. You know, people say, yeah, I'm up at 7 every morning, and I'm thinking, Jesus, I'm just dozing off. You know, so I tend to be you know, I've got a little bit earlier. I'm now going to sleep, I don't know, 1:15 or something. So I've got earlier, but I'm definitely and on the run up to a full moon. I mean, I used to, when I was younger, I used to stay up all night regularly a few days before a full moon, and it would usually involve a hell of a lot of drinking, a hell of a lot of painting, writing. You just had to explode all this stuff out of you. You know, I'm sure it's a file under lunacy, but it was a regular occurrence. I don't get that so much now. I just feel terribly alive, and maybe have to, you know, have one reasonably restrained drinking session. But I used to have to get really gone on the run up to a full moon at one time, and just, you know, the original sleeve art to the 3D EP, that isn't the original art. The original art, I sent them to say something like this. I stayed up all night on one of those full moon occasions because I was going through an obsession with the interaction between red and green, because they excite your eyeballs and your eye penis and what all that stuff, you know. Is it eyeballs? Is it eye penis? And I did so many paintings of red and green, and it was all different, you know, lines and squiggles, and I thought, yeah, when we make a record, this is where the cover art has to go. And so yeah, there's just a little sillier side there, but that came up from one of these run-ups to the lunacy, you know.
Cool. Steve Chris Manning wants to know if you intend to write another book with Todd. So I guess he's talking about a second volume of Complicated Game.
I'd like to, yeah. And I'd also like, although I don't know if he's interested, I'd also like for Colin to do a similar process and describe what was on his mind when he wrote the songs he wrote. Because when you're in the band, when you're in a band with somebody, you tend not to appreciate what they do. It's the goldfish bowl thing again, you know. You tend not to appreciate what. Now I haven't worked with Colin for quite some time. I appreciate more what he did, because it's not being shoved up mein Strasse every day of the week. And you know, and the same with Dave and Terry and even Barry Andrews. I can see what they were about more, and I can appreciate it much more.
Cool.
You know, when you've gone through your male divorce, you get a more neutral grasp of the goods and bads that somebody brings, you know.
Yeah, but you can really only do that with space. You have to have some time away, don't you?
Totally, yeah. You gotta wash it all out of your head and out of your heart. Any foibles that you know, that I often quote this, but you're stuck in a van or a tour bus or whatever it is in a dressing room, and you really do think to yourself, if he blinks like that one more time, I'm going to smash him, because it gets so intense, you know.
That's a marriage. That's a marriage. That's what you do in a marriage.
Yeah, it's a 3 or 4 way male marriage. It's a gang.
Yeah. Yeah, the next time Neil blows his nose, I'm going to knife him. You know?
Yeah, exactly. It gets like that. It really gets like that.
Right. We're getting into the music section now. You still okay? Okay to continue?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm just warmed up now.
Good. Okay.
As you can tell by the pits.
Oh, don't.
I feel like I should be bringing a plate of some exotic food to a table now. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
No, not at all. Tim Brooks would like to know, are you tempted, or have you even done it, to go along to an EXTC gig with Terry and in disguise, just to see how it's going down and what people think of the music?
It had crossed my mind, but about at this speed. That's it, that speed. Because I think if I went, I'd be thinking, oh, that bit's not quite right. Or, oh, you know what, that bass should have been playing that harmony to the guitar at that point, and they haven't quite got. Because I was always very fussy when I went to see anybody live. You know, I'd see some of my favorite bands and I'd think, fucking hell, look at the state of you're wearing a cardigan on stage. Or you know what I mean? Your jeans are too short. You're out of tune. Those lights are terrible. Sack the bloke working the PA. This is dreadful. I was always too damn fussy. I wanted to be more impressed. It takes a lot to impress me. So if ever I went to see some of my favorite bands, I always left thinking, you know, I was feeling like a theater director or something, thinking I really would have fine tweaked that a lot more.
Sure.
And also, one of the reasons I wouldn't go and see Terry live now is the reason that I really don't go and see any live music, which is chronic tinnitus. It's, you know, you tell people you have ringing in your ears and that they think it's like a comedy sketch or something. You've just been hit with a saucepan, you know, or a manhole cover, you know. And it's not. It's I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And I couldn't take the volume of 99% of bands. I mean, Eric and I were invited to see the Beach Boys at the Albert Hall for their 50th tour, and we were sat in the seating area where we were supposed to be placed for the gig, and it was too damn loud. And you know, even with earplugs in, it was too loud for me. So we went and whittled ourselves to the side of the stage and all that kind of thing. And I met with Brian Wilson, the only time I've met Brian Wilson. I was supposed to write with him at one point, but I did hear some horror stories that he really was not together enough to, you know, to do the process. But it was quite impressive, but still very loud for me, and you know, I was still very bunged up with earplugs. So that's basically the reason I don't go and see live music now, is the pain of tinnitus. You know, certain frequencies are just like someone stuck a knife in your ear, you know.
That's not good. That brings me on to one of my later questions. I'll come back to the other stuff because you mentioned Brian Wilson. Tom Demi would like to know what you thought of Brian's remake of the Smile album, which he released in 2004, or maybe the Smile Sessions, which was released, you know, the box set, which was released later.
Yeah, well, my door in to kind of even grasping that the Beach Boys had an album career was Dave Gregory. On our trips up to London, we'd usually go in his car, and he'd play cassettes. You know, that was the technology in the 18th century. He'd play cassettes of, and he'd have stuff going along, and he had Smiley Smile on tape, and I'd be thinking, because of the engine noise, and then I'd hear these little islands of sound would come out, then it'd all be rumble, 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 rumble. And I think, wow, what's this, you know? And it was just almost like little edits. Well, that whole album's made of edits, but little edits coming up between the rumble of the car. And I'd say, Dave, what is this you're playing? Oh, come along, Party, don't be so silly. It's the Beach Boys, Smiley Smile. What's wrong with you, man? And oh, wow, you know, that's an album, isn't it? You know, and I think from then on, I got more into, because to me, the Beach Boys were singles. My little cassette, not cassette player, little miniature reel-to-reel player, I'd have it under the bedclothes with playing Good Vibrations taped off the radio.
Sure.
And, you know, with the batteries running down. I'd obviously taped it with the batteries running down.
So because, speed up.
Yeah, because when I put new batteries in it, you're listening under the bedclothes late at night. I'm picking up the vibration, you know. So that I thought, wow, great song, but you know, it's so fast. So I had no real concept of the Beach Boys album career. Thinking of that, I did loan Beach Boys Party at the time from a family friend, but I remember thinking, this is not very good, this is rather scrappy. You know, the best bits on it seemed to be when they were knocking things over. Because I think they did it in the studio with an invited crowd, and there was alcohol on the go, and you know, so yeah, people are knocking over wine bottles and ashtrays and God knows what, you know. Those to me were the interesting bits, the sort of verite, you know, on there. But yeah, I got into, sorry, I forgotten what the question was. Yeah, Smiley Smile. There seemed to be 1,000 permutations of how you could edit that stuff together. So it's all out in the ether, waiting for you to kind of personally grab bits, a bit like that car journey when you're hearing bits through the rumble of the engine and sort of, oh, that's a different version to the one I know, or oh, they edit out that bit in this version. So it's kind of permanently mutable there.
Right.
I don't think I've used the word mutable this year until then.
Well, I'm glad that we could help. Peter Turner is asking, how did you find dealing with the pressure of being the focal point of XTC as their main songwriter and steering the band's musical direction? Was it something you were comfortable with, or were there times when you were riddled with doubt about your ability to produce the goods time after time?
Several parts to the answer.
There's a thinker.
As the touring years wore on, I really kind of mentally wanted Colin to take over more of the singing role, because I realized I wasn't a great singer, and I tended to go for these long string of theatrical moments or something to make an event for the audience, you know. And it was something I felt compelled to do out of not knowing how to be a decent singer. I just had no grasp. So this series of seal barks and yelps and strange air raid warning noises that came out of my own mouth, and I'm thinking, am I making that noise? God, I am. That was I sort of longed for someone else to say, hey, I've written all these great songs and we're going to do these live. I think I'd be equally happy with that. I felt like I was, because people wanted to talk to me, inevitably 99 out of 100 interviews, it would just, but no, just send us Andy along to the radio station, or just send Andy over to the TV station. And to some extent, touring was kind of a holiday for the other three members, because they'd go off all day sightseeing. And then I'd meet them up at the sound check later in the afternoon, and they'd say, oh, Partsy, what have you been up to today? Well, I got out of bed and I did an interview over breakfast, and then I did a phone interview in my room, and then the tour manager drove me to 2 different radio stations. Then I grabbed a sandwich for lunch, and then it was over to a TV station, and then I went back to the hotel room to do 3 more phone interviews. And you're exhausted by the time you get to the sound check, you know, and the lads are there saying, oh great, we went to see the monument such and such today, or we went boating up the blah blah river, or whatever it is. And I'm thinking, oh, I dream of doing that, you know. So you'd find yourself in these exotic locales, and I was doing too much of the donkey load carrying, I think. And I'm sure the others would admit that now. I mean, there were times when they all kicked in, but there were other times when I was doing 90-something% of it, you know. So that was very, very wearing. And then when I got, how shall we say, sober from Valium, and sober from drinking, because I stopped drinking at the latter stages of being on tour, I started to think about the situation, like, you know, that I've said this many times, but it's worth repeating. I think you stood on stage and you're thinking, wait, there's 10,000 people here tonight. They've each paid dollars a ticket. Where's all that money going? Why does our manager turn up every 4 shows, collect it all in his briefcase and go, and we don't see him for another 4 or 5 shows or whatever? And you, oh, this is where I sing my harmony bit. Then you sort of wake up, you know. But I found myself drifting off into these more awake situations. You're on stage, you're playing something, you're playing kind of almost on remote, you know, Battery Brides. You're trying to zone out and make a repetitive heaven. The landscape for Battery Brides has got to be this repetitive heaven of scanning and working a till, you know, for the people in the store. That's what I'm trying to make musically, you know, and everyone's contributing to that. Dave used to just think it was my guitar solo. Oh, how long is Party going to take with his bloody solo tonight? And it wasn't. I was trying to make repetitive patterns the same way as he's doing. So we make this thing where nothing happens. It's supposed to be a nothing happens heaven. You know, nothing happens in heaven. There are no drunken parties. There are no car crashes. There are no, you know, it's all, it just nirvana forever. I can't think of anything duller. But so I'm trying to make nirvana forever, but I'm sort of drifting away thinking, where's all the money going? We've done a 70-date tour and I haven't seen a penny, or we haven't seen a penny, or why are we in the cheapest hotels possible? Why do we have to travel by blah 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 instead of blue blue blue? Why do the police get a great big bus and a swish hotel and we get a fucking broken down Commer van and a travel lodge or whatever it is? You know, why do they have 5 roadies and we've got 1? You know, so you start thinking about the practicalities. I'll shut up about this because I'm going on too much. But yes, as I became more sober and more tuned to being awake, I wanted to get off the treadmill where I was doing too much of the being a performing monkey, interview wise and carrying the machine wise. And I wanted somebody else to step up and say, hey, I've, you know, this, we're going to do it this way, and it's going to be great, and this is why, and you can take a back seat on this tour, Andy. You know, see, part of me wanting to go to Brian Wilson when I thought, that's it, I can't tour anymore, I need some time off. You know, part of me thought, wouldn't it be great if they carried on touring, but we'll get someone else to sing, we'll get someone else to play the guitar, someone else to sing the majority of the songs. I don't mind writing and not going out there. I don't mind.
You see yourself kind of sitting at a grand piano in a sandbox.
Exactly. Yeah, more of a chicken coop with a chicken coop with a xylophone. Really.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah,
that'd be great. Or a melodica.
Yeah, or melodica. That'd
be great, wouldn't it? Or
ukulele in a chicken coop.
There you go. Ukulele in a chicken. That sounds very George Formby. That'd be great.
Yes. Perfect. So I would have been completely happy with that, but that wasn't to be.
Okay. We better move on, because otherwise we'll run out of time, and you've got better things to do than sit here and answer my questions. Ursula Marie would like to know, 43 years after your first hit single, God, is it really? Does anyone in Swindon still come up to you and say they remember seeing you on Top of the Pops?
No, thankfully I'm largely left alone in Swindon. I think in the early days of being on Top of the Pops and then getting banned from Top of the Pops, which really killed our career in England. We could talk about that, but in the early days, you know, people had come up to you in the pub, hey, you were on Top of the Pops the other night. Yeah, yeah. And then, well, he's not buying us a drink, is he? He's bloody rich now, and he's not buying us a drink. Oh, stingy. So the next time you're in the pub, I think, oh, they say, you were on Top of the Pops the other week. You say, yeah, would you like a drink? Look at him being a flash sod. You couldn't win. You really could. They assume that one or two appearances on Top of the Pops, you know, immediately, cha-ching, you're at least a millionaire now. No, it doesn't work like that, you know. But yeah, we were literally banned from Top of the Pops. Just very quickly, you had to be invited to go on Top of the Pops. You couldn't say, please let us on Top of the Pops. You had to be invited to go on. And we were we were miming. You had to mime. And that's another whole long conversation, but we would have liked to have played live, but they really couldn't handle it and didn't want to handle it. But we were miming senses on Top of the Pops. And this was on a Wednesday afternoon. The camera rehearsals were Wednesday afternoon. It's never live. They used to say, we're live. Well, no, you're not live. This is all Wednesday evening, you know. So Wednesday afternoon camera rehearsals. And we're so bored with them up in the control room and the cameraman getting all the angles wrong constantly. Because all you have to do with a pop song is just count to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, switch, 2, 3, 4, switch, to, you know. And they were going over, and after about half an hour of them fucking up 1, 2, 3, 4, they couldn't do it, you know. We started messing around, like miming out of time or miming away from the microphone or turning slowly around like you're on a revolving stage and shit like that. And there was this great big, the music was stopped and there was this big slamming noise. And one of the cameramen came up to the front of the stage and he tugged my trousers and said, oh, I think you're in trouble now, mate. That's the producer and he's been out to lunch. You know. And then this extremely red-faced producer came down the gantry stairs, boom, clang, bang, bang, you effing, jeffing, juffing, chuffing, you, and he kept calling me a punker. You punkers always annoy me, you always try and upset me, you punkers think you're doing, and blah, 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 blah. He obviously was mightily overserved, if you see what I mean. You know, he was refreshed into the Twilight Zone, but he was a nice, what color was he? Yeah, his flesh was that shade. No exaggeration. He was. Oh, I'll put that back later. He was very gone, and he was saying, you know, you punkers, this, that, and the other. I'm sick of you. Why can't you be more like da 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 da? He said, I'm just going to make sure you are never invited on this show. You will never appear on this show again. And that was it. That completely killed off our Top of the Pops appearances. And seeing as Top of the Pops was about 90% of Britain's awareness of pop music.
Well, there was nothing else.
If you didn't appear on Top of the Pops, you didn't exist.
Yeah.
And you know, people would say to me in the pub or in the street, I haven't seen you on Top of the Pops in the last couple of years. And it was very difficult to explain to them, no, they don't invite us on anymore. You know, you didn't want to go into the whole story of we were dicking around because we were bored with them constantly getting it wrong. You know.
Right, got to move on.
Okay.
Liam Hare would like to know, with the Big Express album, you said it was loosely based concept idea about life and times of Swindon steamworks. What drew you to that?
Yeah, more about life in Swindon. I realise that I'm going to talk fast now.
I can slow it down later.
As the writing went on, I thought to myself, oh, you know, this song's about Swindon. And another one had come up. Oh, do you know, this one's about Swindon as well. You know, oh, that could be about Swindon. And I think it was about our life, obviously, myself and Colin, and our family things. You know, Wake Up I think is really Colin trying to work out his phobia of being the first on a crash scene. I think All You Pretty Girls is my romance of my father's Navy career. I think This World Over is me fearing for any future children I would have, with the enormous shadow of atomic war still in the air in the early 80s. Small Town is my experiences of living in Swindon. The shiny grey black snake of bikes is my granddad was part of that, you know, cycling into the Great Western every day. The Terraline Nylon 90, whatever the lyric is, you know, that's my mum and all her friends coming to the door to the milkman or the postman or the bread man or whatever it was, man, you know. So they were all snatches of life. Train Running Low was me trying to say, I'm getting crushed by this career maybe, and I'm trying to put it into a train metaphor, railway metaphor, because that's where I come from. So it's life and learning and the band's life with Swindon and Railway Swindon, New Swindon as the backdrop.
I'm so glad you mentioned Train Running Low, because it's genuinely one of my favourite songs of all time. Magnificent record.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
poor old Stephen Wilson is attempting to remix for Surround right now.
So the master's been found?
It has been found.
Genuinely shocking, exciting moments.
Yeah.
I love that album so much.
He started working remixing Big Express, so that's on its way.
There's an exclusive for all of you watching now, and nobody else knows this. The Big Express 5.1 is happening. Oh my god,
he sent me an email a day or two ago saying, my god, this song is so dense and so, you know, I can't think of the words he used, but you know, mixing this cacophony is really tricky for him, but I know he'll manage it.
Of course. I'm gonna do a little dance in 5 minutes. When we're off here, I'm gonna have to go and do a little dance because I'm genuinely excited by that.
I see you in your little Perspex mini kilt.
I'm going to go and put on one of your hats, which we're giving away in the raffle, and I'm going to do
get a feather dance. Get a feather in it.
Oh yeah. So I'm going to put Train Running Low on incredibly loud and have a little dancette on the dance set.
You know, it's me trying to work through a bit of a nervous breakdown using the Great Western as the backdrop. So it's not a happy song, but it's real.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I think any of us who have been that age will understand it in some way or another, because we've all had issues to deal with at some point in our life. We've all had that midlife stuff going on, even though it was very early midlife stuff. Okay, we've got to crack on because we really are going to run out of time, and I know you've got other things to do. John Hickey, did you really break one of Dave Mattacks' snare drums?
I have a vague memory of doing that, but he had so many of the bloody things. I thought to myself, well, hang on, so he's down to 49 functioning ones now. I think he brought 50 to the studio. He had them all leaned up against the wall in rows. And I'd say to him, yeah, I kind of, on this song, I hear like a sort of a papery flat sound. Oh, I've got just the one. And he'd go and get something out. He said, one of these two. Da, da, da. Oh, that one. Great. So, you know, any sound you could describe to him, he'd have a snare drum that made that sound. And I have a vague, I mean, maybe the skin was getting old, but I seem to remember I may have damaged the skins of one of his snare drums. Yes.
Stephen Jackson would like to know if you, I think we might have time to cover this one. In the lyric of Pulsing, Pulsing, if you can remember that far back.
Oh, geez, yeah.
What is Andy washing his brain in?
Blood.
Oh, it is blood. Fine. That's he's asking.
Yeah.
I've been washing my hands in the stuff I wash my brains.
Yes.
Blood.
Well, it's everywhere, isn't it? It's all around your body. It's all around humans' bodies.
Okay, we're getting there. Michelle Jacks would like to know if you could curate the Meltdown Festival.
I was asked to.
Were you? What acts would you like to have on?
I was asked to, and I drew up a short list. And I thought, no, shit, I don't want to do it because I'm not ready for public performance. But I was asked to do it, and I struggled to. To be honest, I struggled to make a list. I think Can were on it. I'm not too sure how many members of Can were alive at the time. I think there's one left now, sadly. And I may have even had the New York Dolls on the list, which is, and I wasn't sure. Yes, I was asked to do it. But to be frank, I chickened out because I didn't want to go on stage and be fabulous or have to do that. I'm well into the private life.
Quick one from Brent Gardner. I know the answer to this, but it's fairly obvious.
I'll lie then.
Lie, yeah. If he plays Rook at the convention in the open mic, will you come along and play lute for him?
A two-letter answer beginning with N and ending with O.
Okay. One final question, because this rounds it off rather nicely from where we started. Are there ever any plans to release Holly's version of Unwrap You for Christmas?
It's one of the numbers on the first failed Christmas EP, because my label manager said, I shan't do his accent. He's got a beautiful Irish accent, but he said, look, if you're going to put a couple of volumes of Christmas songs out, you have to make that one of them. And I said, well, the Monkees have already included it on one of their releases, that actual demo. He said, no, it's so good. You have. So he took me around. So it's one of the tracks on volume 1 of the failed Christmas. Only people say, how the hell do you play the intro of Meccanik Dancing? It's simple. It's. There you go. Have fun tonight.